and welcome back to the Scenario 7 podcast. My name is Sam, and today I'm joined by my lovely co-host. It's Matt Collier. Matt, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you, Sam. How are you?
Yeah, mate, I am doing well. A little tired after a 6 a.m. race this morning, but now I guess we know how it feels to live in Australia when the European races are. So you've got to respect their commitment. But yeah, 6 a.m. race this morning. That, of course, being the Australian Grand Prix, which we are here to review at a much more sociable hour, I must add. But before we get into talk about the race, let's start with qualifying, looking back to Saturday. And Matt, for you, what were the key things to come out of qualifying?
It was hectic, wasn't it? So many things happening. The main one being the Latifi and Stroll one. I saw a very funny edit on the meme page of someone putting some Top Gear of Richard Hammond and Jeremy Clarkson as the race audio for it. And yeah, there was a lot happened. Sainz obviously down in ninth place, and yeah, a lot of different things happened that we didn't quite expect to see in qualifying.
Albon, of course, disqualified for underfueling the car, which I thought was a bit naughty from the Williams team with them not coming out and explaining themselves. Alonso was unlucky. He was looking so set for definitely a second row, potentially a front row finish in qualifying, but had a gear problem and went into the gravel. As you said, Sainz was unfortunate, but of course the big thing was the Stroll and Latifi accident. And Matt, in your opinion, I mean, Stroll ended up getting a 3-place grid penalty. Whose fault was it? Is a 3-place grid penalty for Stroll fair?
I'd say the blame more goes towards Latifi, personally. Stroll's, yeah, it was just a mess, really, wasn't it? I guess I understand Stroll's point of view. He sees, I think it was a McLaren of Ricardo who was pushing behind. He's tried to get out of the way. Yeah, Latifi was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna re-overtake now," and I don't know, maybe didn't get the message that there was a fast McLaren from behind. But if Latifi rewatched that and kind of digested it all, I think he should have realised that McLaren is fast approaching. Stroll has overtaken him, fair enough, but yeah, it was a mess, to be honest. So.
Yeah, I think a mess is a great way to describe it. It definitely didn't shine Canadian F1 drivers in a great light. I disagree that it's more towards Latifi. I think it's more Stroll's fault. However, it could go either way for me because it's just such a stupid situation to have in qualifying. So you have Latifi, of course, pulling over, letting Stroll pass because he thought that Stroll was a faster car, but Stroll was on either an in or out lap. So Latifi then tries to re-overtake. But the issue for Latifi is, first of all, he didn't know. That's fair enough. If he was a faster car enough, that's fair enough. That's more to do with his race engineer letting him know. But he's tried to re-overtake him at such a weird place at the track, which for that I think that's really stupid. And then Stroll, I think, is more to blame because while Latifi was trying to overtake at a stupid part of the track, Stroll has to look in his mirrors and see Latifi coming. He does end up just swerving into him. Admittedly, it's not because he's intentionally doing it. He's just not seen him in his mirrors. He's seeing cars behind. It's a complete mess of a situation. I think a 3-place grid penalty for Stroll was harsh. I think it was more his fault, but 3-place, I thought that it was a bit 70-30, whose fault it was maybe 60-40. It was just a stupid incident. But of course, Stroll gets a 3-place grid penalty from 20th and ends up starting 19th because Albon's gets disqualified. So the 3-place grid penalty did absolutely nothing. But yeah, that incident in particular was just an absolute mess, and probably best that both drivers forget it. Though this isn't the first time Stroll has been accused of not checking his mirrors. Remember when he crashed into, was it Vettel in the Ferrari on an in-lap after a race, and he had to get on a car, I think it was Pascal Wehrlein's car, and get back to the pits. Stroll just needs to check his mirrors, and these are two drivers that are not getting much praise in F1 at the moment. Anyway, onto the race, onto the main event. And first of all, Matt, what were your general thoughts on the race?
I think it was quite good. I quite enjoyed it. A lot of unexpected race results. Of course, you had all the safety cars, lots of drivers doing different strategies, going long, pitting early, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think the DRS zones definitely improved the overtaking from a few years ago, and yeah, it was thoroughly entertaining. Especially at one point, there was a Albon train, and everyone was trying their best to overtake each other. So yeah, that was a very good race.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I thought it was a good race. While Leclerc was very dominant from start to finish, I think that was clear, apart from maybe a safety car restart, which he still stayed in front at. He didn't drop any positions. The midfield battles were very good throughout. As you mentioned, the Albon strategy, which we'll talk a bit more about later. I know you're king of strategy, so I bet you love that one. But yeah, you had the train because of that, and you battles all over the field. I thought that as much as we can criticise Stroll, there were times in the race that he did some fantastic defending when he learned that he weren't allowed to weave. Like after that, he did some good defending. So I thought it was a good race, and I'm glad to see Australia back on the calendar because it's just I think it's a great venue. But you touched on it a bit there about the track changes. Do you think that the track is now perfect in the fact that, do you think that the changes improved it a lot? Do you think they've improved it at all? What did you think about the changes on the race, or is there still a bit of a way to go?
I think mainly the cars improve overtaking, not necessarily the changes to the track. Yeah, but I think the DRS zones still improved overtaking opportunities, but there were some points where you just wanted a few more bits of tarmac to, make the overtaking more easier. And yeah, I remember, well, they were discussing about 4 DRS zones. I'm pleased they went down to 3 DRS zones. I think they soon realised that was a mistake, and it just would have been even more chaos and almost probably more dangerous having 4 DRS zones. So yeah, I think the changes definitely improved the race.
Yeah, I think that there's still a way to go with this track. I think that you mentioned it there. Some of the straights need to be longer because the big opportunities come when there is DRS on these straights. But the problem is the main straight after you come, after the last corner, you come to the main straight and you get DRS, but there isn't that much overtaking you can really do because it's not that long a straight. Similar to the second DRS zone, I don't think that's particularly long either. You saw some moves there, but it wasn't that particularly long. So I think that in order to improve it, they need to potentially make straights longer, and it would improve the racing, the amount of overtakes. But I definitely think there was improvement to what it used to be. It took me a while to get used to racing in Australia again, but not with the circuit that we've become so accustomed to. But I do think that it probably did improve the racing. Now on to the incident report, going through all the incidents throughout the race, and there aren't really that many talking points this week. So we're starting lap 2. We had Carlos Sainz spinning into the gravel at turn 10, which caused a safety car, just wrapping up an awful weekend for him. A lot of it wasn't his fault. That incident definitely was. Lap 23, we had Sebastian Vettel losing it at turn 4, which is so rare. You rarely ever see someone losing it coming out of turn 4. I think Martin Brundle said it was a highly unusual crash there, but that brought out a safety car. On lap 39, we had Max Verstappen pulling over with a fire in the back of his car, causing VSC. Matt, I know you mentioned early in the season that the biggest problem for Red Bull will be reliability, and again, proved right with that incident. The main thing that we can really debate from the incident report was Bottas got forced off by Stroll on lap 42, which the stewards decided not to give a penalty for. What do you think about this? Because I'm not sure I agree with the stewards, but I'm pretty unsure currently. What do you think?
Yeah, I think when Bottas got squeezed off, he lost 2 places in the end, and yeah, I felt that deserved a penalty, or at least Stroll to drop back behind Bottas. Yeah, I think personally, I think that one deserved some sort of punishment.
Yeah, I think I agree. I guess the main argument for Stroll is he thought that it was his corner, though I just feel like Bottas was given no room. You're meant to leave a car's width. There definitely wasn't a car's width. He was pretty much off the track. You can argue he made the overtake while, he made the overtake while Bottas was basically off the track. It was a bit aggressive. However, we've seen it quite a lot last year with Verstappen doing it, and he didn't get penalised for many of them, if any, really. So I think the stewards are looking at that leniently. What I think probably a penalty, but the stewards were lenient there, and Bottas got a good finish in the end anyway, and Stroll didn't get that great a finish. So in the end, Bottas still got some good points. So it doesn't matter too much in the end. Stroll also got a 5-second penalty for weaving on the straight, but I didn't see what lap it was, so didn't mention it on the lap by lap stuff. I'm pretty sure we're in agreement, pretty blatant. Do you agree with the decision?
Yeah, I haven't personally seen it. I think the stewards are trying to be more stricter, as you've already explained. All the Verstappen weaving that he did last year, he'd normally get one warning and then that would be it. Whereas this one, it was, Stroll, you are weaving, that's a penalty. So yeah, I think the stewards definitely trying to tighten up all the weaving that drivers do.
Yeah, I certainly think it's a positive. I've seen it a few times, and the problem is when you're defending like he was, you can make one move to defend, but the problem was that Stroll made another. So Stroll went to his right-hand side to cut off, I think it was Bottas, might be wrong, might have been another driver, but he went right to cut off the driver, but then when the driver switched to his left, he then cut back left, which you can't do because that is, I guess, weaving. So I think the stewards were right for that one. A few people thought a 5-second penalty was harsh, but you've got to crack down on it because it could cause some people to get hurt. Now, I think we move on to the team by team breakdown because there's a lot to talk about individually here with each team. A few interesting results, as you mentioned earlier, but let's start with the Ferrari, the team that didn't actually get the most points this weekend, but did have the driver winning the race. So they had Charles Leclerc, of course, first to first, as well as getting the fastest lap on the last lap. And then they had Carlos Sainz starting ninth and DNFing. How do you sum up their weekend with the two drivers?
I think from Leclerc's point of view, it's perfect. He's doing everything he can. In terms of Ferrari and Carlos Sainz, I think Ferrari won't be happy with Sainz's result. I know there was a lot of bad luck, but these are the early races where Ferrari are clearly the fastest car, and you want to get as many points as possible before teams develop their car loads. And yeah, we talked about the championship battle and who were the drivers. We talked about Carlos Sainz and was he in this championship battle? And a race like that isn't going to get you a world championship. Even if you're starting in ninth, you'd expect him to claw back a few places and, I don't know, finish fifth, for example. But yeah, I think Leclerc will be happy. But in terms of the constructors for Ferrari and Sainz, I think they'll be disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, you've pretty much said it all. Leclerc didn't put a foot wrong all weekend. First in qualifying, first in the race, didn't concede a place at all. And then with Sainz, just a lot of bad luck. In qualifying, he was looking good, had a few problems, and then he had to change his steering wheel just before the race started, and then went into anti-stall just before all lights went out. So he lost loads of places at the start, and then was clearly getting frustrated on a lap two, got a bit too confident on the cold, hard tyres, and just lost it and couldn't recover the car. Really unfortunate in some points, but him DNFing was human error. It was his fault. Not ideal for Ferrari to have a DNF, especially when their reliability looks head and shoulders above every other team's, because you have the Red Bull, you've had a few issues with the Alpha Tauri, and then of course you've had double DNF first race, and in this race Verstappen couldn't finish, so Red Bulls look dodgy for reliability. Mercedes are not clear from reliability issues either, because of course you had Vettel breaking down in practice, and Hamilton was managing overheating issues. You had the McLaren of Norris nursing issues at the end of the race. Of course, we don't know if that's engine related, but Ferrari just looks so solid reliability wise. They need to capitalize to get as many points before teams like Mercedes find pace and Red Bull find reliability. But now on to the Mercedes-Benz team. And I think a better weekend than they could have hoped for, to be honest. You had George Russell starting in sixth, finishing third, and Lewis Hamilton starting fifth, finishing fourth. George Russell is now second in the drivers' table, which is quite hard to believe. But how do you reflect on Mercedes' weekend?
Yeah, you've basically already explained it. Very good. If they got third and fourth, I would be delighted. And yeah, the fact that they're second in the constructors and Russell's second in the drivers' championship, and everyone was talking about how this is one of the toughest years for Mercedes, but they've got a driver in second, in the constructors they're second, so it's not exactly all doom and gloom for them. And yeah, their car's definitely looking a lot better from the first three races.
Which is quite strange because they have not changed any parts in their car. I think they've just gone with I think they said they've gone for a bit of an aggressive setup this weekend, and it seems to have worked. George Russell, just a fantastic race, but he was very lucky because you had the safety car, so he got to do his pit stop under, I'm not sure if it was VSC or if it had been upgraded to safety car at the time, but he had got his pit stop done, so he literally came out where he went in, and then Hamilton just safety cars and VSCs are just going against him because his strategy was fine. And then a few laps later, this safety car comes out. You have George Russell who gets a free stop. You have, when the safety car came out, he was catching to re-overtake Perez, which was a move that I think he probably would have got done. But literally the safety, he's just been really unlucky so far. But fourth place in this car that has not looked great all year, did definitely had its best in terms of race pace, was matching Red Bull this weekend. So that's definitely a positive. But I think that fourth and third, they'll be very happy with it. Talking about Red Bull, they're just carried by Sergio Perez. Let's be fair here. He's above Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship, so he's just a miles better driver. Let's be real. We had Sergio Perez coming from third to finish second in a result which is definitely the best that Perez could have done, because Leclerc was just off, and then Verstappen hammering home that reliability issue again, second to DNF. What do you think of Red Bull's weekend, and should they be concerned going forward?
Yeah, I think they should be concerned going forward. They've got a lot more competition slowly creeping up behind them. I think Martin Brundle said at one stage during the race that the Mercedes was the faster race car than the Red Bull, because Hamilton, kind of appeared out of nowhere and was all over the back of Perez at one stage. And yeah, this reliability for Red Bull is not looking good at all. Perez should have arguably won Saudi Arabia. He DNF'd. Well, both Red Bulls DNF'd in the first race. Another DNF for Verstappen in this race. And yeah, they've got a lot of work to do with all this reliability stuff. And it's not like it's the same problem. These are all different issues. And yeah, it must be very frustrating to be in a Red Bull team at the moment.
Yeah, definitely frustrating. You can tell in the interviews that Verstappen, especially, is getting very annoyed with it. Red Bull are just such an interesting team, because Christian Horner came out in the interview and was like, I would rather us to be have a fast car with poor reliability than be a slow car with great reliability. So I think that says a lot in terms of their building their car to be the fastest, and then reliability is a bit of a second thought, while they're not like weighing them on the same level. So I thought that was quite interesting from that interview. But yeah, 18 points this weekend for them, still behind Mercedes. Perez is carrying big up Sergio Perez. Now on to McLaren, and McLaren fans will be overjoyed. I wish we could have Josh here from America, because I bet he was jumping up and down when he probably woke up or whatever hours the morning that he watched the race, because McLaren did so very well this weekend. First of all, in qualifying, Lando Norris qualifying fourth, that came out of absolute nowhere. I mean, I know they were showing signs in practice, because Norris in FP3 did finish first, but fourth in qualifying, very impressive. And Ricciardo as well, seventh. That is a big step up from the first two races of the season. And then Norris finishing fifth, Ricciardo sixth as well, getting some great points for the team. How do you sum up their weekend? Lando Norris is still taking the pessimistic approach, saying that they just got lucky that the track suited them. But what do you think? Are they making steps in the right direction? They had a very good weekend.
Yeah, they do have a good weekend. I can understand what Norris is saying, because there aren't massive straights around this track. But yeah, the McLaren's porpoising issue definitely looked a lot better this weekend, and yeah, they're slowly getting to where I think they should be, and that's top of the midfield. And it wasn't just Norris that was putting in a good performance; it was also Ricardo. They were basically following each other the whole race. Ricardo only finished half a second off Norris at the end of the race, and these are the big points that McLaren need, because a lot of teams are having reliability issues, and they're just there to pick up the points. So yeah, McLaren fans will definitely be happy.
Yeah, we'll see if this good form carries on as we go into the European season. But yeah, definitely a big positive for McLaren this weekend. Next is on to Alpine. And on the surface of it, some decent points. But I feel like if you delve deeper, it could have been so much more. First of all, Esteban Ocon starting 8th and finishing 7th. That was a great result. But then you had Fernando Alonso, who started 10th, could have been front row, finishing 17th because strategy just let him down, really. What do you think of the Alpine weekend? I mean, Alonso finishing 17th is just really unfortunate because he showed some great race pace, didn't he?
Yeah, he showed great race pace and great quality pace as well. But I think 6 points, they probably wanted more like a P6 or P5, and those points just above them were taken by McLaren. So yeah, they'll kind of be a bit surprised at McLaren's pace, and I think they're their main competition at the moment. So yeah, Alonso finishing 17th, as you said, is not where you'd expect him to finish.
Yeah, because he stretched this hard tyre out for so long. Of course, not as long as the man, the myth, the legend, Alex Albon, but stretched out for a long time and then finally went onto this medium compound, and the graining on, I think it was the left front tyre, was crazy really early on. So it had to come into the pits again. And at that time, he was just at the back of the grid. So frustrating for Alonso, what could have been so much more, but a solid result for Ocon. Alfa Romeo next. And unfortunately, Valtteri Bottas did end his qualifying streak. 103 Q3 appearances in a row was over as he started in 12th, but did finish in 8th, while Zhou Guanyu started 14th and finished 11th. So both of them gaining places in the race. What do you think about Alfa Romeo's weekend?
Yeah, as you explained, Bottas's quality streak came to an end. I think in the first quality session he was looking really good, and then in just the second one he just couldn't hook the lap up together. Yeah, Bottas is picking up the points. Guan Yu Zhou's already got a point, to be fair to him, in his rookie season. So yeah, I think they'll still be happy with how the weekend's gone. But there's definitely a lot more competition in the midfield for the bigger points.
Yeah, the midfield battle is definitely hotting up, and a team that did very well in the first two races, carried by one driver, admittedly, got 0 points this weekend, being one of only two, with the other one being Aston Martin, who are absolutely rubbish. So Haas, not really sure what happened this weekend. Kevin Magnussen starting 16th and finishing 14th, and Schumacher finishing 13th after starting 15th. So Magnussen, who looked very good first two races, beaten by his teammate in both qualifying and the race. What do you think happened with Haas this weekend? Was it the track? Was it a setup that they got wrong? I mean, from where they were, getting 0 points is quite a difference.
Yeah, it could be a lot of things. It could just be the track and how short all the main straights are, that they wasn't able to use their full power package. Yeah, but Magnussen 14th, after having such a brilliant first race, getting P5, and yeah, Mick Schumacher, out qualified Magnussen this weekend, which which was a surprise. And yeah, I don't know, the car just didn't turn up for this weekend. I do feel like Haas could have done the strategy slightly different with Magnussen, because I think it was him, Alonso, and Albon that didn't pit, and there was that thing as a virtual safety car window, and yeah, the fact that he's just been beaten by his teammate, yeah, it's a bit of a shock, really.
Yeah, certainly was a shock. I'm sure they'll come back fighting in Emilia Romagna next race. But yeah, it was very strange to see them off the pace after such a great start. But at the end of the day, if you'd have told Günther Steiner they'd be on what points they're on after 3 races this season, he'd have bitten your hand off. He'd have done things that I'm not going to say on the podcast, but he said in an interview. So he would be he will be very happy with how many points they're on, even after a disappointing weekend. AlphaTauri next, and of course the other team that has the Red Bull engine in. Pierre Gasly was the driver that brought home all the points, starting 11th, finishing 9th. Yuki Tsunoda starting 13th, finishing 15th. Yeah, I still think he might have a breakthrough season, but the early races aren't really showing it. He's not being helped by the poor reliability, but today I personally didn't hear about any issues with his car. Finishing 15th, I think he could have done a lot better. But what do you think about how AlphaTauri did this weekend?
Yeah, it's just the midfield's hotting up, as you said, and it's a lot more competitive. Gasly still got 2 points, but yeah, Yuki Tsunoda finishing 15th in the end isn't. He's had his first year in F1. You kind of expect him to be doing a bit better, and not finishing 15th. And yeah, the competition in the midfield's definitely hotting up. And a race like this, you'd want Yuki Tsunoda to be finishing higher up the grid.
Yeah, especially finishing behind Stroll, 2 Haas who were off the pace in a car which I'm not really sure yet about where it is in terms of pace, but it's got a Red Bull engine in it, so it's got to have some speed, but reliability letting it down, and Tsunoda just not doing great. But Gasly, some solid points. Now on to the penultimate team, and we get to talk about your lookalike Alex Albon. And wow, what a race today. Starting 20th after them not putting enough fuel into his car, which was stupid, to be honest. In qualifying, you can moderate it so much better than the race. I don't really understand how they've done that or why they've done that if they've done it deliberately. But starting 20th and finishing 10th, getting a point. And then Nicholas Latifi starting 18th, finishing 16th, whatever. But Alex Albon, wow, what a race. Getting a point for the Williams. You love your strategy. What did you make of that strategy from Williams? To say it was bold would probably be an understatement.
Yeah, it was one of those like 100 IQ strategies, and it paid off. Yeah, I kept looking at Albon saying, how many more laps is he going to do on that tyre? I can only imagine there's like, if there was a tyre wear graphic, how shot his tyres were. But at the same time, I think he had Ocon behind for a lot of it, and Ocon just couldn't get past. Ocon had to drop off because of like cooling issues, and yeah, I think at one point for Williams could be worth so much in the grand scheme of things, because Aston Martin just look nowhere at the moment, and Latifi 16th, he finished above Alonso, but to give it a bit of praise, but yeah, it just hasn't been Latifi's weekend.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's been Latifi's season so far, but kept it out of the wall. I'm sure that's probably what all the team said, to be honest. They probably just went in, listen, you've cost us a fortune already. Just please just finish the race. But 16th for Latifi, wasn't last, so improvement, and he did finish. But then Albon, sensational. Watching this, I'm not gonna lie, I just assumed that Martin Brundle and Crofty were wrong. I was like, nah, he must have pitted. He just pitted on early lap. He must have pitted. Like I just couldn't believe it. And then I just seeing him go in on the last lap, and just you see Leclerc crossing the line, and then you see a car coming out of the pits, and it's Alex Albon, and he holds on to Zhou. I really wish they showed a bit more of that battle, because that would have been quite interesting to see that. But of course, they're going to show the car that's just won it, the celebrations of all that. But yeah, fantastic strategy from Williams. I can't believe it worked. What shocked me the most is that even when his tyres were over 50 laps old, he was matching the times of the cars behind him, which is crazy on that. I mean, it's a hard compound, but stretching it that long was impressive from Albon. Impressive strategy in terms of the team knowing he could do it. So round of applause for Williams, because as you said, that point could be the difference. Now on to Aston Martin, who we've mentioned a bit. First of all, was Stroll 19th to 12th. So on the looks of things, that's not too bad. And then Vettel 17th to DNF. And it just really wasn't Vettel's weekend, because I'd put him into a similar category, because him, Sainz, Alonso, all just kind of had nightmares this weekend. Of course, Alonso managed to finish the race, but was last. They all just had absolute nightmares, and they're drivers that we wouldn't expect to have these problems. I mean, Vettel losing it where he did was, I'd argue, rookie error. Sainz losing it where he did was, I'd also say, rookie. And then Alonso, I mean, in the race, he didn't really do anything wrong. He just got unlucky with a bit of tyre deg. But just these experienced drivers making mistakes. And Vettel has just had probably the worst weekend of all of them, because his car broke down in second practice. I think it's this way around. Car broke down second practice. Third practice, he crashed. Then qualifying, he got out for one lap. To be honest, 17th off one lap isn't too bad, especially in that car. But then crashing in turn 4 in the race, just nightmare for Vettel. But yeah, I've waffled a bit. What do you think of Aston Martin's weekend? There's not really much to say, is there, really, apart from the fact that it was pretty poor again?
Yeah, it's been a disaster. I think that's the best way to describe it. I mean, Vettel has had COVID, to be fair to him, and he's had a few weeks not driving this Aston Martin. But I think it was Paul di Resta saying that, does Vettel look motivated? I discussed in previous pods about, what age do these drivers just drop off, and I don't know. This could be Vettel's last season in F1. The car is just not performing to what he'd like, and yeah, he's still struggling. I think at one stage he said that he didn't know when to brake. The brakes were just so unpredictable, and yeah, Stroll. I do feel like, I don't know, Stroll was in a good position personally. I think that race, and he maybe could have got 10th, maybe could have got 1 point, and yeah, he's weaving and just forcing Bottas off the track. Yeah, it just was an awful weekend, really, for Aston Martin.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree. I think that this is Vettel's last season, as you said, I don't think he looks motivated at all. I think he would have been promised a good car that can compete, and what he's got is far from it. It's a car that's just not very quick, that's bottom of the constructors. It's not the Haas from last year. Like we've got to make that clear. It's not as bad as the Haas was last year, because Stroll coming 12th proves that. But it's still a car that's not really that competitive. And realistically, the highest they're going to finish this season is probably eighth, and that's like the max they could achieve if they get a few upgrades and get some good points. But yeah, Vettel, I think this could be his last season, because it looks very frustrated. Right, final thing is deciding driver of the day. Few nominees for this one, but Matt, who have you gone for?
I've gone for Alex Albon. I think it was just a phenomenal drive in the race. I don't know how he made those tyres last 56 laps, and as you already explained, he was keeping on the pace lap time wise with the cars around him, mainly behind him. Ocon just couldn't get past. He had to back off, and yeah, there was a lot of discussion about who would get this Williams seat at the start of the season, whether Bottas would end up there, whether Nick de Vries would get this seat, and Max's pal Russell, he definitely convinced the Williams team boss. And yeah, I think that was a superb drive from Albon. And as I said, that 1 point could be worth so much in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, certainly a great point. There is the debate about whether Williams Latifi makes people look good or if they have genuine talent. But Albon making those tyres stretch today, I think, showed his genuine talent and that he's a very good racing driver. But I have gone for a man you've mentioned when talking about your driver of the day, Esteban Ocon, the man who struggled to get past the Williams driver, of course, but did have an overheating problem. He carried Alpine in terms of the points today. Over the weekend, he got some good results, 8th in qualifying, pretty decent. Of course, it could have been better for Alpine with Alonso, could have done much better, but Ocon made it stick, did really well. This season, I've talked about him a lot, looks very, very good, looks to be, up to this weekend, looked to have been the better driver out of him and Alonso. Though this weekend, I feel like that's flipped a bit, even though Alonso did finish 17th and didn't beat him in qualifying either, which I know is crazy to say, but I think Alonso this weekend did really come out strong. But yeah, Ocon is looking very good. Ocon did what he was trying to do, what he had to do, and managing an overheating problem at the end to finish 7th, with Bottas in a very quick Alfa Romeo coming up behind. Good result. So Esteban Ocon is my driver of the day. And that wraps up our podcast reviewing the Australian Grand Prix. After a long absence, we finally returned to the Albert Park circuit, and it was a very good race. But if you want more of this, if you want more reviews, if you want more previews, a fantasy show, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media to stay up to date with whatever we're going to be bringing out. And we've really ramped up the content this year, bringing you a lot of it. So make sure you keep up to date with it and keep interacting. We appreciate it. Comment who you think did well. Who was your driver of the day? Let us know. But yeah, thank you for watching. We'll see you in Emilia-Romagna for a preview and review and fantasy show in 2 weeks' time.